Okay, January 10th, 2022. Been a little while since I've done a video, but I've been busy working on my other car and finally getting back into the BMW. So at this point, I'm working on the OEM wiring. Back there, you can see I've cleaned things up from the prior photos. It was a big mess. Basically at this point I'm just zip tying everything. When I am done, I will go back through, and if you notice the way that the tape looks on those wires, those are kind of untouched factory wires. I have the same cloth tape, even the same width, so when I'm done it'll all look like factory wiring. Right now in this section I am lengthening and working on the wiring that is going down by the factory footwell. And I'm going to be moving this out of the way, plenty clear of the woofer, so I can pull the woofer in and out and service it without any issues. One little trick I want to show here, these are basically, these wires are the ones I'm getting ready to solder together. And what I do is put the heat shrink on the wires, put a zip tie on them just to keep the heat shrink very far away from when I'm soldering. That way it doesn't get affected by the heat from the solder and end up kind of shrinking, pre-shrinking, if you will, the heat shrink. So I'll go ahead and solder these. When I'm all done, I'll move the heat shrink down, heat shrink everything, and get it all back together. See you soon. Okay, January 12th, 2022, January 12th, 2022. At this point, I have cleaned up the wiring in that back area. Again, if you notice, everything is just zip tied, and that's just to make sure everything works electrically. And then once it's done, I'll do the tape and get it prepped for Dynamat. I will be replacing that entire harness for the windows right there. But everything is pretty clean, pretty organized. And then I came up with the idea of like a clothesline, if you will, where I'm going to run that across, and for all the harnesses that go up into the dash, I'm going to lay everything out, and that way I know, I'll make sure I identify what's what plugs into where, and make sure it's routed properly. So my next endeavor is going to be this, which is, it's a lot worse than it looks, which is a joke, but it's a big mess. There's quite a few cut wires and a lot of soldering involved, and I will be extending the wiring. So when I'm done, it'll kind of look like this. This I'm going to still mount into place, especially that big power wire, but I'll have about this much distance here away from the woofer, so that if I need to change it out, it's very simple. I don't have wiring in the way. But again, on that side, it's going to be a little crazy. So that yellow plug, for example, that'll be bypassed, and I'll solder all the wiring, but I'm going to have to extend the wiring to be able to do that. So it should be fun. Stay tuned. Okay, just taking note of the wiring routing here for the driver's side seat. So this harness that has this loop comes in like that. And then these two go out to those two plugs. Gonna redo all that. All right, today's January 16th, 2022. Just wanted to give another kind of a summary of what I'm doing here with the wiring. Going through, removing pretty much any electrical tape, even OEM, that was sticky and bad, and I'm just using zip ties just to kind of hold everything in the general area as to where it goes, as you can see there. Then I'm going to try all the accessories, make sure everything is good, and then I will re-secure them so that it looks like stock. So basically, all of the wires here, these are, just as an example, are the wires going into the door, the Molex plug. That is the Molex that plugs into that plug right there, so it goes into the woofer side. This I had to strip all the factory tape off and the aftermarket tape, clean it really good, literally cleaning every wire with Goo Gone, because there's a lot of sticky residue, and even some expandable spray foam. This is the factory tweeter wire that goes into the door. I'm just going to leave that in case I need to run something into the door. Obviously not a tweeter. And then basically, as you can see here, I trim all the wires so that they're all exactly the same length. And this is kind of my little trick here for the heat shrink. I put it on and I zip tie it out of the way to make sure that as I solder it, it's not, the soldering gun does not heat it up and affect it. Twisting all of the wires to maintain the same thickness of between the wire and the insulation. So I'll solder all these up, slide the heat shrink on, heat shrink everything, and that'll be restored. This is out of the green car, just kind of referencing harness the brackets. Not even sure I can use the bracket, but before I take it apart, let's take a look at what's going on here. I think that is it to have this bracket. I think that's it. Hey, how's it going? January 25th, 2021. At this point, I am cleaning up all the factory wiring. What I'm doing here, as you can see, I'm going through the woofer hole for easy access, but I'm removing as many of these Molex plugs as possible and bypassing these. This one especially was right in the way of where the woofer would mount. I just have the wire tied up here just for easy access. But a lot of these wires here, I'm going to shorten up, tidy up, and remove a lot of these Molex plugs to just reduce the bulk. This harness, you can see I've already done that on. And if you notice here, that's where there used to be a Molex, but I've bypassed it. The interesting thing to note is that a lot of these colors of these wires, like this one, for example, you'll notice that the wire changes color coming in and out of the Molex plug. So I am methodically going through doing one at a time to make sure that I mate them properly and hopefully do not have any issues when I go to turn the key over and start up the car. All right, today is February 6, 2022. Pretty deep into kind of cleaning up the wiring still in the driver's side. Kick, ultimately the goal is to move the wiring enough so that I can get the woofers in and out without any issue, and try to obviously keep everything as clean as possible. So this is the factory bracket here that holds a lot of these Molexes and harnesses. This will go up here, tucks out of the way. I think I'll probably have to cut this tab off so it doesn't interfere with the woofer. And then what I'm doing here is just using backstrap to mock up some brackets. There's some factory mounting studs, and here I can catch the bolt that'll go through here, and then I'll be able to secure these wires to these brackets. These will be made out of aluminum when I'm done. I'm just mocking it up now. And then as you can notice, I got all the wiring coming in by the woofer. The objective is going to be to take these wires and pull them immediately when they come through the firewall up this way so that they're out of the way of the subs. And also these wires here, you can see where there's see the heat shrink there. That was a Molex plug, the yellow and white Molex plugs that were there that were huge. So I've cut those out, bypassed those. But looking at it, I think I'm going to extend those wires just to push them out of the way a little bit more. And I have wiring out of the green car, which will allow me to do that. See you later. All right, February 11th, 2022. I am nearing the end of extending the wires needed in the driver's kick panel. Again, just to kind of show you the process that I'm doing here, I put all the heat shrink I need all the way up the wire, and zip tie it to make sure it doesn't get near where I'm soldering. And then off the other car, the parts car, I had all the factory harnesses. I sectioned out what I needed, matching up the colors, as you can see. And then here's the other end coming through the firewall. And did the same thing there with the heat shrink. I'll get all of this soldered up And then from there, all I'll have left to extend is this bundle here, which again had a Molex, so I've bypassed the Molex. And interestingly, in the Molex plugs, there were several that changed color when they came from one end of the Molex to the other, so that was a good time, making sure everything stayed matched. And then I'll have to extend these two, which are ABS wires. These are shielded coax, so I'll have to carefully cut and extend and solder those. So making progress. All right, this was going to the heated seat switch. We have a gray with a brown trace that goes to black. We have a gray with a white trace that goes to blue, and then the brown ground went to white. All right, February 16th, 2020, kind of the purpose of this video is to document everything on this HVAC box before I disassemble and give it a rebuild. So this is just reference material. This is the ground that goes by the steering column. This harness plugs in also in the white bracket with all the other Molexes. This plug I need to figure out. I don't know if it goes to anything, but I'll post on a BMW page and find out. These were popped out. Notice where this wire goes. This also I've got to identify. I forget where that goes, but I'll figure it out. This, all of these go to the climate controls, as does this cable here. Note I have the shortest wire with the green for the control cable goes here. I'm taking all these off. Red one here on the lower, blue one here. Also note, let's go over to this side, kind of got this foam plate here on the actual coolant lines. These are, excuse me, wiring in from the floor of the car. All right, part two of the HVAC box. This is the wiring coming in off the floor of the car. Note the routing here. We've got a clip here, another clip here. It's going to come across. There's a white zip tie here to match that. Keep it OEM. Another white one here. Wiring is going to go around here. This is where this cable comes out. It's going to wrap around. Another zip tie. Another zip tie. Another zip tie here. Kind of goes back in the back there. You can see. Goes down. Another zip tie here. We're going to spill a little coolant when I tip this out. That's all right. And then I've got the main control box back here. That's what all the wiring looks like. Got to figure out these doors. This does not look right. We'll get that all pulled apart. A lot of dust and debris after almost 30 years. And then we have this section up here. Let's reference this rod. We'll be taking that apart. We have the flaps here, and obviously also flaps along the top. The red cable controls this. The blue cable controls this center vent. Okay, I think that should do it. I have enough reference here and time to get it pulled apart. Okay, this video is just going to be to document the alignment of this is going to be, I think, relatively critical. So I want to go up here, pull this all the way where that's closed. That's the way it should line up. And that correlates to these flaps. So pulling it, that's kind of closed, and then another click further kind of closes it. This one, there is no variance here, as you can see, so that's easy. This one is out of the way. note where that is. And this controls okay, I forget which flaps, but I guess Mike, note where that is. And again, I won't try to mark it. Okay, this video is to document the placement of these clips for the front of the airbox. I think one is missing. I can grab it off my spare airbox, but basically all the way around the perimeter. Note where these all are. Not sure what I'm going to find when I get inside here, but we'll take a look. Okay, inside the back of this cover, notice that it looks like there was a gasket along here, but it's pretty much disintegrated. I might want to do a little RTV in there when I reassemble. Also, there are these heat sensors, I'm guessing. It looks to be bent. I'm not sure if it's bad. Inside, little debris. Gotta get the evaporator core, I believe it's called. We'll get that out, and then I'm gonna have that kind of flow tested, pressure tested to make sure it's good. And this, basically this assembly up top here is controlling these flaps inside. I'm going to check all of the seals, but these appear to, yeah, they're rubber, and aside from needing a good cleaning, those appear to be in quite good condition despite their age. Just noting with this video where this bracket here, it basically has this tab that slides in. That tab right there, and it goes up inside of here. This is showing the secret hidden screw that I have back here. So, torque screw. There it comes. And that should allow me to pull this whole front cover piece off. I'll work on that. Okay, for the first time in probably over a year, car has life. I've got to go through, all I do is turn the key on. I've got obviously the battery in, or a battery in, and I'm going through and just testing some electronics. So far, everything that I've tested has worked. I've got a spray bottle and a hose ready in case something goes crazy, but so far things are doing what they should. Things like headlights, all of that, door chime, that's working. So I still have several different electrical components to check, but after, gosh, I don't even know, I gotta count, maybe 500 wiring connections, knock on wood, carded, burned to the ground, and so far everything works. All right, March 19th, 2022, I have completed all of the new wiring connections, rewired everything that needed to be rewired. I've done a key on test without starting it, and everything seems to be good. And at this point, I'm going to go for broke and attempt to start the car. So here we go. Wish me luck. A lot of wires. Alrighty, that is a success. So keep an eye on. At this point, I've got I had the coolant basically drained from the car, because as you can see, I pulled out the HVAC box. Well, we are running. Car seems to be running smooth. I'm going to go take a look and make sure I burp the coolant level. Make sure my coolant temperature stays in check. The SRS light I'm not worried about. That was there before. And obviously I have no airbags hooked up, so of course that'll come on. But I'm not worried about it. Actually, otherwise, you can see it. I have no other indicator lights, which is a great sign. All right, more testing to follow. Thanks for watching. Nothing obvious in this section that I can see. But if you look you can see on this side where the grease is, and that's where the whole unit moved. So I know for sure it moved out. Okay, today is Monday, April 4th, 2022, and working on more and more wiring. I'm starting to actually wrap all the wiring. It's going to be the wiring for the HVAC box, which I'm in the process of rebuilding. You can see those are all the parts cleaned and prepped. That's what an old one looks like. This is the one out of the parts car. You can see it's quite dirty. It's kind of a mess. But this one will be done by the end of the week. I'll have it all reassembled and ready to go. More on that later. So as far as the wiring goes, this is what the factory wiring looks like. If you notice this, I have just zip tied just to kind of hold where the wires kind of separate from each other, just to remember that. This is what the factory tape looks like. It's I believe it's 9mm wide cloth tape, but as you can see, it's after almost 30 years, it's quite disintegrated. It's kind of come loose in a lot of areas like that, and it's sticky. It's kind of a mess. So right here, from here down, you can see where I've redone the wiring. So I'm maintaining the same tape. I was able to source 9mm Tessa tape, which is cloth OEM tape. I'm also, where I make my brake, I'm putting a 25mm tape, and I'm even at each end I'm hitting with a little bit of super glue just to make sure that the tape does not come unraveled or compromised. But again, you can see everything is very, very solid. Looks exactly the same way that BMW did it the first time. Alrighty, more later. All right, today's March 5th, 2022. This video is just going to highlight what I've done with the wiring for the HVAC box. This is the one out of the parts car. I'm just kind of using this as a template, and if I need any spare parts, so far I do not. But as you can see, what happens, with a 1994 car that's coming up on 30 years old, the tape that they use just kind of disintegrates, doesn't stick, but it leaves the wiring kind of messy, dirty, sticky, just pretty nasty. So that's what that airbox looks like. That is a piece of the wiring that I've redone that's actually the one that goes in the car for this airbox. I sourced, again, the same exact tape that BMW used, which is a 9mm cloth tape. I'm using Tessa, T-E-S-A brand, and it looks identical to what BMW used. This is the rest of the airbox. I just have it apart. I'm going to replace all the foam. You notice right here, this foam is destroyed. It's gone. So it's about a 1/2 inch tall from the factory. I've got some neoprene coming out. I will cut and fit. I'm also going to replace it, not this one, but on some of the flaps, there's like foam to help it seal inside the box. So I'm going to replace all of that on this airbox. And then finally here, you can see this is the main wiring harness that I have prepped. So to give you an idea, some of the detail I've gone into, again, same thing. I use the same exact tape that BMW used. I went through and used Goo Gone on all the wiring, and then a degreaser, and then rubbing alcohol. So I have the wiring all completely clean, all new cloth tape. Anywhere where I have a section like this, I'll do a little bit bigger tape. Again, same Tessa tape. And I'm also putting a drop of super glue just to make sure that the tape stays attached. I'm even going and cleaning all of these little connectors and did a rubber treatment kind of to just shine them up and make them look like new. This harness alone took 2.5 hours to clean, wrap, and do the prep on. So the rest of the car, I probably have another 20 to 30 hours. The rest of the car is all clean, but I still have to go through and tape that up. But again, once I'm done, it'll look exactly like BMW did, or even better. Thanks for watching. All right, Sunday, April 10th, 2022. Here's the airbox from the parts car. Notice how dirty, vents are all gross. The inside of it was disgusting, full of dirt and leaves and all kinds of crap. Wiring is kind of Again, we talked about this earlier. The factory wiring tape is just kind of disintegrating, leaving the wiring all sticky. It's pretty nasty. This is the one out of the red car, 16 hours later. Wow, a lot of work. I went in, and as you saw probably in some other sections, I can't see them now because it's all sealed up. Actually, you can. Let's see, I think. Yeah, you can't really see that lower door in there. Replaced all the gasket in that. But basically redid all of the gaskets, redid all of the tape for the factory wiring, every single inch. So there's factory control box, even replacing the zip ties exactly where BMW put them. And if you notice, the wiring 100%. Even used, again, the factory tape, the same. I sourced the same Tessa tape that they use, 9mm wide, and put a drop of super glue at each end just to make sure nothing is going to come undone. This is the wiring that's going to go into the dashboard, even clean the plugs. This will go into the driver's side of the dash. This will ground on the steering rack where the rest of the stuff grounds. And as you can see, all the wiring in there is all nice and clean and redone. There's the back of the other box. And there's the clean one. So, easy part's over. It is a bear to get this thing in and to line it up. Between those 3 hoses going through the firewall, getting everything to fit properly, and this is going to be the beast right here. That's the AC line, which is a rigid, hard line coming in. And I make sure I don't screw up the rubber O-rings, which I'm replacing. So, wish me luck. Next step is going to be to get this into the car. Talk to you soon. Hey, what's up? This is the airbox out of a 1994 540i, and I was pretty careful about documenting the wiring when I took everything apart, but I have something I'm a bit confused on here. This plug is the plug that is tied in, as you can see. I didn't realize that BMW also had this plug, which is the one that normally goes in the car and goes off to the passenger side, right underneath the airbox. I believe the one in my hand here is the one that plugs into the airbox. BMW has it where both plugs, this one and this one, are identical, so it's tough to say. Or excuse me, this one. So my thought, I believe what happens here is this one plugs into the box, goes to the passenger side. Then there are these 2, which then plug into this one. I don't think was plugged into anything. I believe this was zip tied. I redid all this wiring. And then this one mates to this one. So if somebody could confirm this setup is correct, that'd be great. I'd appreciate it. Thank you.